One fine day, Pooh had stumped up to the top of the forest to see if his friend Christopher Robin was interested in bears at all. At breakfast that morning, a simple meal of marmalade spread lightly over a honeycomb or two, he had suddenly thought of a new song, and it began like this. Sing ho for the life of a bear. Well, when he had got as far as this, he scratched his head, scratch, scratch, scratch. And he thought to himself, well, that's a very good start for a song, but what about the second line? So he tried singing, ho, 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 2 or 3 times, but it didn't seem to help. Perhaps it would be better, he thought. Think, 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 think. If I sang hi for the life of a bear. So he sang it. Hi, hi for the life of a bear. Oh, hi. But it wasn't. Very well, then, he said. I shall sing that first line twice. Sing ho for the life of a bear, sing ho for the life of a bear. And perhaps if I sing it very quickly like that, I shall find myself singing the 3rd and 4th lines before I have time to think of them, and that will be a good song. Now then. Sing ho for the life of a bear, ho. Sing ho, ho for the life of a bear. You know, I don't mind if it rains or snows, 'cause I've got a lot of honey on my nice new nose. I don't mind if it snows or rains, 'cause I've got a lot of honey on my nice clean paws. And so sing ho, ho for the life of a bear. Go ahead, sing ho, ho for the life of a bear. And you know what? I'll have a little something in an hour or 2. Oh, I don't think I can wait that long. He was so pleased with this song that he sang it all the way to the top of the forest. Sing ho for the life of the bear, sing ho for the life of the bear. And if I were going on singing it much longer, he thought, it will be the time for the little something, and then the last line won't be true. So he turned it into a hum instead. Christopher Robin was sitting outside his door, putting on his big boots. As soon as he saw the big boots, Pooh knew that an adventure was going to happen. And he brushed the honey off his nose with the back of his paw. Brush, brush, brush. And he spruced himself up as well as he could. Spruce, spruce, spruce. So as to look ready for anything. Good morning, Christopher Robin.
Hello, Pooh Bear. I can't get this boot on.
Oh, that's bad.
Do you think you could very kindly lean against me? 'Cause I keep pulling so hard that I fall over backwards.
So Pooh sat down, dug his feet into the ground, and pushed hard against Christopher Robin's back. And Christopher Robin pushed hard against his and pulled his boot until he had got it on. And that's that. Now what do we do next?
We are all going on an expedition.
Going on an expedition? I don't think I've ever been on one of those. What are we going to do on this expedition?
Expedition? Silly old bear. It's got an X in it.
Oh, I know. But he didn't really.
We're going to discover the North Pole.
Oh? What's the North Pole?
It's just a thing you discover.
Oh, I see. And are bears any good at discovering it?
Of course they are. And Rabbit and Kanga and all of you. It's an expedition. That's what expedition means. A long line of everybody. You'd better tell the others to get ready while I see if my gun's all right. And remember, we must all bring provisions.
Bring what?
Things to eat.
Oh, I thought you said provisions. Yeah, I'll go tell them. The first person he met was Rabbit. Hello, Rabbit. Is that you?
Let's pretend it isn't and see what happens.
I've got a message for you.
Oh, I'll give it to him.
We're all going on an expedition with Christopher Robin.
What is it when we're on it?
It's a sort of boat, I think.
Oh, that sort.
Yes, and we're going to discover a pole or something. Or was it a mole or something? Anyway, we're going to discover it.
We are we?
Yes, and we've got to bring things to eat with us, and in case we want to eat them. Now I'm going down to Piglet's and tell Kanga, will you? He left Rabbit and hurried down to Piglet's house, and Piglet was sitting on the ground at the door of his house, blowing happily at a dandelion and wondering whether it would be this year, next year, sometime, or never. And he had just discovered that it would be never. And he was trying to remember what it was, and hoping it wasn't anything nice, when Pooh came up. Oh, Piglet, we're going on an expedition, all of us, with things to eat, to discover something.
To discover what?
Oh, just something.
Nothing fierce.
Well, Christopher Robin didn't say anything about fierce. He just said it had an X in it.
It isn't their necks I mind, it's their teeth. But if Christopher Robin is coming, I don't mind anything.
In a little while, they were all ready at the top of the forest, and the expedition started. First came Christopher Robin and Rabbit, then Piglet and Pooh, then Kanga with Roo in her pocket, an owl, then Eeyore, and at the end of a long, long line, all of Rabbit's friends and relations.
I didn't ask them.
They just came. They always do. They can march at the end of the line, after Eeyore.
What I say is that it's unsettling. I didn't want to come on this expotition, what Pooh said. I only came to oblige, but here I am, and if I'm at the end of the expedition, well, what we're talking about, then let me be the end. But if every time I want to sit down for a little rest, I have to brush away half a dozen of Rabbit's smaller friends and relations first, then this isn't an expedition, well, whatever it is at all. It's simply a confused noise. That's what I say.
I see what Eeyore means. If you ask me...
I'm not asking anybody, Owl. I'm just telling everybody. We can look for the North Pole, or we can play Here We Go Gathering Nuts in May with the end part of an ant's nest. It's all the same to me.
There were shouts from the top of the line.
Come on!
Come on, we're starting.
All right, we're going. Only don't blame me.
So off they went to discover the pole, and as they walked, they chatted to each other of this and that, all except Pooh, who was making up a song. This is the first verse.
First verse of what?
My song.
What song?
This one.
Which one?
Well, if you'll listen, Piglet, you'll hear it.
How do you know I'm not listening?
They all went off to discover the pole, Owl and Piglet and Rabbit and all. It's the thing you discover, as I've been told, by Owl and Piglet and Rabbit and all. Eeyore, Christopher, Robin, and Pooh, and Rabbit's relations all went too. Where the pole was, none of them knew. Sing hey, for Owl and Rabbit and all.
They all went off to discover the pole, Owl and Piglet and Rabbit and all. It's a thing to discover, as I've been told by Owl and Piglet and Rabbit and all. Eeyore, Christopher, Robin, and Pooh, and Rabbit's relations all went to. And where the pole was, none of them knew.
Sing hey,
sing hey,
sing hey,
sing hey for Owl and Rabbit and all.
dangerous place.
Hush.
Hush, hush.
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 Hush!
Hush! Hush! The last and smallest friend and relation was so upset to find that the whole expedition was saying hush, hush to him that he buried himself head downward in a crack in the ground and stayed there for 2 days until the danger was over, and then went home in a great hurry and lived quietly with his aunt ever afterwards. His name was Alexander Beetle. They'd come to a stream which twisted and tumbled between high, rocky banks, and Christopher Robin saw at once how dangerous it was.
It's just the place for an ambush.
What sort of a bush? A gorse bush?
My dear Pooh, don't you know what an ambush is?
Owl, Pooh's whisper was a perfectly private whisper, and there was no need to...
Ambush is a sort of surprise.
Well, so is a gorse bush sometimes.
An ambush, as I was about to explain to Pooh, is a sort of surprise.
If people jump out at you suddenly, that's an ambush.
It's an ambush, Pooh, when people jump at you suddenly.
Well, Pooh, who now knew what an ambush was, said that a gorse bush had sprung at him suddenly one day when he fell off a tree and he had taken 6 days to get all the prickles out of himself.
We are not talking about gorse bushes.
I am. They were climbing very cautiously now up the stream, going from rock to rock, and after they had gone a little way, they came to a place where the banks widened out at each side, so that on each side of the water there was a level strip of grass on which they could sit down and rest. Well, as soon as he saw this, Christopher Robin called,
Halt!
and all the animals in order down the line called,
Halt.
Halt!
Halt!
Halt.
Halt, 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 halt.
I think that we should all eat our provisions now, so that we shan't have so much to carry.
Eat all our what? Oh, that's a good idea.
Have you all got something?
All except me, as usual. I suppose none of you are sitting on a thistle by any chance.
I believe I am. Ooh, yes, I was. I thought so.
Thank you, Pooh, if you've quite finished with it. It don't do them any good, you know, sitting on them. Takes all the life out of them. Remember that another time, all of you. A little consideration, a little thought for others makes all the difference.
As soon as he had finished his lunch, Christopher Robin whispered to Rabbit. Whisper, 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 whisper. And Rabbit said,
Yes, of course.
yes, of course. And they walked a little way up the stream together.
I didn't want the others to hear.
Quite so.
It's... I wondered... It's... Rabbit, I suppose you don't know. What does the North Pole look like?
Well, now, you're asking me?
I did know once, but I've sort of forgotten.
It's a funny thing, but I sort of forgotten, too, although I did know once.
I suppose it's just a pole stuck in the ground.
Sure to be a pole, because of calling it a pole. And if it's a pole, well, I should think it would be sticking in the ground, shouldn't you? Because there's no place else to stick it.
Yes, that's what I thought.
But the only thing is, where is it sticking?
That's what we're looking for.
He went back to the others. Piglet was lying on his back, sleeping peacefully. Roo was washing his face and paws in the stream while Kanga explained to everybody proudly that this was the first time he had ever washed his face himself. And Owl was telling Kanga an interesting anecdote full of long words like encyclopedia and rhododendron, to which Kanga wasn't listening.
I don't hold with all this washing, this modern, behind-the-ears nonsense. What do you think, Pooh?
Well, I think... But you know, we shall never know what Pooh thought, for there came a sudden squeak from Roo, a splash, and a loud cry of alarm from Kanga.
Rue's falling in.
Look at me swimming.
Oh.
Are you all right, Rue, dear?
Yes, look at me swimming.
Everybody was doing something to help. Piglet, wide awake now, suddenly was jumping up and down and making, I say noises. And Owl was explaining that in case of a sudden and temporary immersion, the important thing was to keep the head above water. And Kanga was jumping along the bank saying, Are you sure you're all right, Rue, dear?
Look at me swimming.
Eeyore had turned round and hung his tail over the pool into which Rue fell, and with his back to the accident was grumbling quietly to himself and saying, All this washing, but catch on to my tail, little Rue, and you'll be all right. And Christopher Robin and Rabbit came hurrying past Eeyore and were calling out to the others in front of them.
All right, Rue, I'm coming.
Get something across the stream lower down. Some of you fellows.
But Pooh was getting something. He was standing with a long pole in his paws, and Kanga came up and took one end of it, and between them they held it across the lower part of the pool, and Rue, still bubbling proudly, Look at me swimming, drifted up against it and climbed out.
Did you see me swimming? Pooh, did you see me swimming? That's called swimming, what I was doing. Rabbit, did you see what I was doing? Swimming. Oh, hello, Piglet. I say, Piglet, what do you think I was doing? Swimming? Christopher Robin, did you see me?
But Christopher Robin wasn't listening. He was looking at Pooh.
Pooh, where did you find that pole?
I just found it. I thought it ought to be useful. I just picked it up.
Pooh, the expedition is over. You have found the North Pole.
Oh? Eeyore was sitting with his tail in the water when they all got back to him.
Tell Rue to be quick, somebody. My tail's getting cold. I don't want to mention it, but I just mentioned it. I don't want to complain, but there it is. My tail's cold.
Here I am.
Oh, there you are.
Did you see me swimming?
So Eeyore took his tail out of the water and swished it from side to side.
As I expected, lost all feeling, numbed it. That's what it's done, numbed it. Well, as long as nobody minds, I suppose it's all right.
Poor old Eeyore. I'll dry it for you.
Thank you, Christopher Robin. You're the only one who seems to understand about tails. They don't think. That's what's the matter with some of these others. They've no imagination. A tail isn't a tail to them. It's just a little bit extra at the back.
Never mind, Eeyore. Does that feel better?
It's feeling more like a tail, perhaps. It belongs again, if you know what I mean.
Hello, Eeyore.
Hello, Pooh. Thank you for asking, but I shall be able to use it again in a day or two.
Use what?
What we are talking about.
I wasn't talking about anything.
My mistake again. I thought you were saying how sorry you were about my tail being all numb, and could you do anything to help?
No, that wasn't me. Perhaps it was somebody else.
Well, thank him for me when you see him.
Pooh's found the North Pole. Isn't that lovely?
Is that it?
Yes.
Is that what we're looking for?
Yes.
Oh? Well, anyhow, it didn't rain.
So they stuck the pole in the ground, and Christopher Robin tied a message to it. North Pole, discovered by Pooh. Pooh found it. Then they all went home again, and I think, but I'm not quite sure, that Roo had a hot bath and went straight to bed. But Pooh went back to his own house and, feeling very proud of what he had done, had a little something to revive himself. Honey.
Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, tubby little cubby all stuffed